Welcome back to the Grid Challenge. Andrew Kurland here with Davey Siegel. It is hot in the NASCAR playoffs, just like it is hot in your house. You're just fanning yourself with the fly swatter.
Well, there were some flies in the house earlier, and it's just kind of sitting out here, so I'm like, why not? Resourcefulness.
Yes, exactly. Well, I can't think of any fly swatting puns on the fly here.
It's okay, I'll
for the
forgive you.
NASCAR
On the fly,
playoffs.
that works.
Did that work? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
Yeah, maybe it does. But we were just at Las Vegas racing in the first round of the round of 12, and boy, did it get exciting towards the end of that race. Matt DiBenedetto racing for his first win ever in the Cup Series, and then you have Kurt Busch racing to advance into the next round of the NASCAR playoffs. Kurt Busch ended up prevailing, and wow, just the emotion he showed after the race, that was pretty cool.
I must say, raise your hand if you had Kurt Busch in the round of 8. This guy, told you. I was a little bullish on that because I was like, I want to have one Busch brother in the next round, but I don't know who it's going to be. And when I was filling out my bracket, something about Kurt just screamed to me consistency and different pit strategy. And it's kind of what happened because Matt McCall, I actually asked him on the post-race Zoom, because if you guys remember back last summer at Daytona when Justin Haley won the race, who was among the drivers that pitted right before the rains came? Kurt Busch. Matt McCall made that call, no pun intended. And then this weekend, right as the green flag pit stops were ending, caution comes out for debris. Kurt Busch in the one car, the only playoff driver that stayed out and was on the lead lap. So it worked out for them in this respect. And like you said, though, with Kurt's emotion, like nobody celebrates a win like Kurt Busch does as of late, honestly. I mean, and this is different, too, because first time at his home track, 22nd try, finally gets it, and he knows that his prime years are behind him. He doesn't have that much time left specifically to get a win at his home track. So to see him do that, albeit with no fans there, that part sucked, but it was just cool to see a driver be genuinely happy and emotional to win a race. And we've seen that the past few weeks, which is refreshing.
Yeah, and he mentioned, obviously, in the post-race Zoom, it's moments after you win that race. You don't really have time to completely understand what it is, but in that moment he said this was right up there, if not higher than his Daytona 500 victory. And speaking of the fly swatter, I actually did just see a fly right behind you, so you better get ready with that. Yeah, actually. You better get ready. They're coming for the Grid Challenge here. They just want to have an appearance on the show.
If it hits me, I'll just hit myself. It's fine.
Well, Kyle Busch is actually -9 below the cut line, and it's kind of interesting. Kurt Busch's brother wins, and he pushes his other brother below that cut line. I know we discussed last week, is Kyle Busch just in the right mindset, right playoff mindset, and here he is below the cut line heading into Talladega and the Roval, two tracks that are just unpredictable and difficult. So let's talk about Talladega, which is coming up this upcoming week. Obviously, who knows what's going to happen? Like, you figured this is the ultimate bracket buster, if there is a bracket buster track out on there. Like, what can we expect? Do we think this is going to be kind of like the Daytona race that we saw only a few weeks ago? I think we're going to kind of see something similar to that, but it's not an elimination race, so it might be a little different.
You can't expect anything that you know is going to happen, but these few things. There's going to be blocking. We know that because we've seen Joey Logano has not been afraid to not have friends on the racetrack in recent weeks, and we know that he's really good on plate tracks, specifically Talladega. He will be running up front. He will block people. It will result in a big one. It's bound to happen. It will. You also probably will see some manufacturer alliances that will occur because remember a couple years back, Chevrolet had that secret, not so secret meeting with all of their driver contingent, and they work together really well. So you're going to see a lot of the manufacturer alliances come together. And a couple years back, too, Stewart-Haas Racing ran 1, 2, 3, 4 for the entire race. And who won it? Eric Almirola, who's way below the cut line. This is statistically his best racetrack, which is impressive because a plate track being your best one is like, wow, how do you do that? But going to the Roval next week, I think Amarola is probably looking at Talladega, maybe not as a must-win, but as a must capitalize and must not get into trouble because statistically other drivers in the playoffs are going to have issues. You're going to have your Kyle Busch's, Chase Elliott's, Austin Dillons that are going to be fighting for their lives and making aggressive moves, and that's bound to happen. But also what's bound to happen with that is wrecks and crashes and loss of stage points. If Amarola can kind of steer clear of that and maybe not get the win to automatically advance him, but if he can garner enough stage points to advance, being in a good spot heading to the Roval, that'll be huge for him. I'm looking for blocks, manufacturer alliances, a rush to get stage points, and a couple big ones.
Yeah, Eric Amarola, average finish 4.71 at Talladega. Clearly his best racetrack in the playoffs, and that's like extremely impressive. One win, 5 top 5s, 7 top 10s for driver number 10 in the Cup Series. And I don't know where the manufacturer role is going to play, because you saw it at its peak when Stewart-Haas racing cars absolutely dominated at Talladega. Yeah. Chevy, obviously, with their secret meeting, as you kind of mentioned, tried it out themselves, but I feel like it hasn't been a prominent storyline as of late, and I wonder if that's kind of like keep the manufacturer roles in the game, but don't make it the entire game. I think we're going to see a little bit mixture of both, because I know Chevy tried to get a little bit too hands-on. It didn't end up working out like they wanted to. So manufacturer roles, I'm curious to see what it's going to look like this weekend at Talladega. But yeah, 2 guys to watch, obviously, are Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. We're talking about some of those Fords having some of the speed. Brad Keselowski, 5 wins at Talladega, which is incredible, and a few of those came in the playoffs to advance himself, even with his backs against the wall. So Keselowski's going to be a guy you have to watch out for. Joey Logano, 3 wins, 8 top 5s, 10 top 10s. This dude, I mean, if he's not on your fantasy team this week, I don't know what you're doing.
And Ryan Blaney won the last time we were there. So Penske's going to be strong. So Stewart-Haas. I think this is the first time that we're actually going to disagree on this show. Breaking news. Because you said the manufacturer alliances are not going to be huge. I think they are going to be, because Penske and Stewart-Haas are going to work together. I think that's going to happen. I think RCR, even though they only have 2 cars, and Hendrick, they're also going to work together with some other cars like JTG and some other one-car Chevrolet organizations. The plate tracks are where JGR is kind of out to lunch, because all they got is JGR, Levine, and Gaunt Brothers. And Levine and Gaunt Brothers are not up to snuff with JGR, so usually those are the cars that are just hanging out in the rear of the field for the first, 80-85% of the race, and then they try to mount their charge. I think you're going to see manufacturer alliances be a big part of this weekend, but when there's 2 to go in the stage, all bets are off, and especially with the race as well. I think we're going to see that.
I think it's going to vary depending on how the race ends up going. I think in Daytona we saw manufacturers a lot more than we would have, because pit strategy came into play, and it ended up being Chevy versus Ford versus Toyota, because they all pit together. I do think if we're going to be in a pack and racing together and having natural wreck cautions to break pit strategy up, I think it's not going to be as prominent as a different strategy or different race to play out. So I think it's obviously going to depend on how the race ends up working out, like we saw at Daytona. But it is going to be interesting to see who's up front and who's running well, and who's racing for the stage points, who's racing to win, and then who's just doesn't care and then is just going for that checkered flag. So it's going to be interesting, kind of like Daytona, 3 different objectives going into this race, and I don't know who's going to prevail out of it.
All right, I'm going to make a bold call here.
Okay.
It's his last race as a Cup driver in NASCAR, period. He had a top 10 at the last plate track at Daytona to end the regular season for that small team, Beard Motorsports. Why the hell not? Brendan Gaughan's going to win this race. I'm telling you. Remember a couple years ago when he flipped over and he called that a 10 from the Russian judge? I'm telling you, man. Why not? He has nothing to lose. And he's smart, because he knows that he doesn't want to mess up stuff for the playoff guys, and he's been around the block a time or 2, 3 or 4 for 62. But I'm telling you, I think he's going to win this race, and he's going to dedicate it to John Thompson in victory lane. Bold prediction.
That is a bold prediction, but I could totally see us looking back next week and like, man, Davey called it right here.
I'm telling you right now.
He's always in contention. And it's like, when it comes to these plate tracks, I call them plate tracks. We both know
they're
what we
plate
mean.
Tracks, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so let's just call them that. But Brendan Gaughan, you always know he's there whenever we're at these super
and the thing
speedways.
is, like, what does he have to lose?
You're right.
He's not going to be in another race for the rest of his life. He has nothing to lose. He's not going to get in the way of the playoff contenders. But again, with 2 laps to go in the race, the last race of his entire career, who's to say that he's not going to root and gouge a playoff driver out of the way? Not wreck them, but instead of, pushing
It's
them on the
Talladega,
outside line to victory, why not just slide down in the inside lane and go if it's open? Like, I don't know. If he stays out of trouble and he avoids the big ones, which he has done in the past couple races, because finished top 10 the Daytona 500, I believe. I think he had a solid run at the first Dega race. I might be wrong on that, but he finished in the top 10 at Daytona a few weeks back as well. It's not out of the question. I mean, why not? I'd throw $20 on him if I was a betting man.
Yeah, no, he would be a great bet to place. I'd be very interested to see if Brendan Gaughan wins
That'd
this
be
race.
so
I think obviously another playoff spoiler is Ryan Blaney won the last 2 races at Talladega, including the race 1 year ago, 3rd closest finish ever in the history of Talladega, 0.007 seconds. The margin of victory between first and second. And another guy finished second in that race, Ryan Newman, was very close to winning Daytona 500 until that horrible, nasty crash. I think Ryan Newman and Ryan Blaney are 2 guys who could possibly, in addition to Brendan Gaughan, spoil this playoff party at Talladega. That's what I love about it, is this is the one track where anybody can throw off a playoff driver's agenda, and it's the best.
I just hope that, like, Quinn Huff, Garrett Smithley, Joey Gase don't, like, get in the way and ruin everything, because it's not unlikely, but it's also not likely. I don't know. We've just seen it happen in the past at, like, mile and a halves, and them kind of bring out a caution that changes the whole race, just like a piece of metal last week at Vegas changed the whole complexity of the race and the playoffs. But who knows? That's what we love about Dega. Like, it is the wild card to end all wild cards. You think it's going to be the Ryan and Ryan show? I think it's going to be the Brendan Gaughan show. Don't count out Alex Bowman, who won the virtual Talladega race on iRacing. Who knows? Like, you literally don't know.
Where's that on racing reference?
I know, right? He had a really good run at Vegas, too, before the caution came out. I mean, he could have theoretically swept the Vegas races in 2020. So momentum's going to count for something. I don't know if iRacing counts for anything, but if it does, he may be a good pick, too.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you look at the 12 drivers and you're like, well, they all have a great shot because it's Talladega and I'm looking forward to it. It's, man, we got Talladega, the Roval, and then we eliminate 4 and we're already in the round of 8. Like, it's heating up. It's heating up in the NASCAR playoffs.
Let's go, man. I can't wait. I wish Phoenix was tomorrow, but I'm kind of glad that we got a few more weeks to just let everything mellow out, the temperature flare a little bit more, and get the green rising, all that work. It's coming down to it. Vegas this week and then Roval. 2 craziest races of the year.
Can't wait. It's going to be a fun one to watch. We'll be back next week on the Grid Challenge to break down Talladega.